My my advice is to recognize what those emotions are. Because if you don't understand what the problem is, you'll never look for a solution. I watched 500 Days of Summer, one of my favorite chick flicks of all time. And then afterwards, and it was great because my DMs were blowing up like awesomeness. Awesomeness! And then after that,
Always works.
I was like, I need more DMs my way. I need to feel more love from people I barely know. So I watched Before Sunrise, and that was way too much. I was like, why am I here? So my question to you is, as you are not like a chick flick type of girl, and
While
I'm
you were
a chick
watching
flick
that
kind of guy.
last night, yeah, exactly. I was watching Edge of Tomorrow. That's the kind of person I am.
So with that being said, I have my fair share of favorite ones. I love 500 Days of Summer. I love Before Sunrise. I love Serendipity. I loved 10 Things I Hate About You. Those are a lot of the chick flicks that I love. What is your favorite chick flick?
I also love Before Sunrise. I love that
Because it's
movie.
not much like a chick flick. It's like an indie film that kind of is like a chick flick.
Okay, When Harry Met Sally
Nice,
is one of my
nice.
favorite movies. I also love Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, nice, nice.
One of my favorite movies. I also love 500 Days of Summer because when I watched it when I was in high school, my best friend turned to me and she's like, "You're Summer."
Yes!
Right? I am Summer.
Oh my god.
Right? Yeah. So I feel like I really connect. I only like chick flicks where I connect with the character. So 500 Days of Summer, I love that movie. I watched it maybe like 6 times. So that's me. Right? Isn't
Summer.
I am Summer.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. Okay. Uh
So oh,
my
can I
life
just
my life is just turned upside down. Okay.
I'll tell you a story. So,
Okay.
2 years ago, when I just, or 3 years ago, when I just got single, and you know me, I'm a hopeless romantic. I may not like chick flicks, but
Uh-huh.
I am a hopeless romantic. I stopped watching rom coms and chick flicks altogether for a year and a half
What?
because yeah, for a year and a half I didn't watch any chick flick, any romantic comedy movie, nothing, because I wanted to stay single, and I knew that my heart was emotionally dependent on movies, and that if I watch these movies and these series, I would have a really hard time to stay single, and I wanted to stay single. This was my goal for 2 years, like stay single, not be in a relationship, just travel the world and work. That was all I wanted to do. So for almost 2 years I stopped watching rom-com movies and
Oh
series.
my god. I, on the other hand, I am a huge rom com and chick flick like fan. I'll watch all of it. P.S. To the boys, I watch everything. Anything on Netflix that is free. The Kissing Booth, I watch that. Yeah, Noah Centineo, I know you. I see you, bro. You and your weird captions on Instagram that nobody understands. You're like,
What do you even
what are you
mean?
saying? If the stars cried and the tears fell down onto a rainbow that spewed out the seed of love, and you're like, dude, what?
Nobody knows.
But girls like that. Why do girls like guys like that? That
we,
with
we
those weird kind of like, the tears of Jupiter come
No,
down and
no. I think this goes back to your old theory, the cute creepy scale.
okay.
It's cute because it's Noah. Make some other dude do it and it'll be creepy, right? It'll be like, ugh,
Yes.
that weirdo. But since it's a Noah Centineo looking guy, then you're like, oh my gosh, he's so deep and ominous and incredibly smart, and we probably don't get it because we're just below him.
We
You
were not
know,
on the same level, and I want to
we're
be
not
at
on the
his
same.
wave.
Exactly. So it's a cute creep scale that you, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's in one of the episodes here
Yeah.
on Adulting with Joyce Pring, where Aaron Atayde gives a perfect theory alongside his other theories like the Netflix phenomenon and cute creep scale. So check it out. You'll find more about it.
We should do an episode of like bringing all of those back since we have like a lot of new listeners. We should go back to some of the theories that we've come up with on this show and bring them back and rehash them. But what we are doing on the show nowadays is we are answering your questions. Whether they are questions that you have sent as a voice note through joyspring.com, whether they are also voice notes that you sent through the Anchor app, or even sending them through the Facebook group. We are collecting and collating them all. We're reading and listening to all of them. And now we are going to be getting one off of the Facebook group. And the best part about it is that there is answers from the other members of the group giving their input. We'll read them as well as that. So right now we are going to be reading a question posted by Ian. And Ian goes, "Hello SOS fam, how are you doing? I would like to ask if it's okay to be emotionally dependent on a person, like your partner, friend, or a family member. And if yes, do you think it has to have its own limits? Thank you. P.S. Asking for a friend." Well, Ian, your friend went to the right place, I hope, on this. What do you think about this, Parts? As somebody that is in a marriage now, where you went from, you were saying it a while ago, 2 years of being single and trying to make sure that you weren't dependent on someone, to now being locked in a house for how many months now, being dependent on that person. How much have you changed?
Okay. So one of the things that Wancho and I would constantly be fighting about is the fact that I am emotionally dependent on him, and not in the way that Ian is probably talking about, but more of my reaction and my response is always dependent on his feelings. Like if, for example, he's being irritable, I'll also be irritable. I'll be like, oh, because you're so irritable, that's why I'm irritable. Like it's always emotionally dependent on that. And one of the things that we had to kind of work on and learn is to tell each other that, hey, your emotions, they don't have to depend on my emotions. Just because I'm feeling sad or happy or irritable doesn't mean that you have to feel the same way. You have to be responsible for your own emotions. And I
Yes.
think that's the first point that we want to say. The second point for me is it's inevitable that you'll be emotionally dependent on the people that you love and the people that you're constantly with. It's just human nature. We react. We react to whatever we feel, to what we're surrounded by. So I think that's inevitable. But okay, so how do you find the balance, Aaron Atayde? Because yes, we have to be responsible for our own feelings, but Ian is also saying that is it okay for you to be emotionally dependent on other people, in the sense na can you actually kind of lean onto them when you need comfort and advice, and should there be boundaries for it?
Okay, the way that I look at it is, I always look at this as a bar stool. And I know you're thinking now, like, oh, here's Aaron again being an idiot. A bar stool has three legs. You take out one of the legs and it's gonna fall down. So with your emotions, it should be dependent on three different things. One of the legs is your own personal assessment of the situation. Okay, because anything that you feel will have to always end up with you. No matter what anything else that happens around you, it'll always end up with you. The other one is your friends and family that you depend on as well, because they will give you an outside perspective of how you're going to be feeling, these kind of situations. And the third one is how you pray and how you think God is going to react to your decisions. So if all three of them come together and they all are at the same level, the stool will stay flat. Now, if there's one that is a little bit heavier than the other, if you're putting a little bit more dependency on it, that's when the stool gets all wobbly, and then you got to stick a napkin underneath, and you're like, I don't know what is happening. Do I put it on this side or this side? I don't know. Is it here? I don't know. Is it back here? So you have to have like an equal amount of dependency on both yourself, on other people, and what you would like to get from, how you think God has plans for your actions.
Ang ganda nun. I think we should end the podcast on that note.
Yes! I did
That
it!
was wonderful. That's true. So I have to say that the Bar Stool Theory is really, really good, and I think that taps into what we always talk about. Life is all about balance. So don't give yourself too hard a time if you're depending on your family and friends and your loved ones for emotional support, because that's normal for you to do that. Now, if the scale is tipping on too much the other side, then that's when you have to worry, right? Aaron Atayde gave a good point wherein your emotions is not a one-sided thing. It's a multifaceted thing wherein there's that personal side of you, there's that emotional, spiritual side of you, and there's also that familial, loved one side where you have to kind of find the balance in all that. And that's where you settle for your emotional stability. Because you're right, even if you look at, for example, people who are experiencing familial problems, right? Minsan pag may family problems ka talaga, it changes the whole thing. It really changes the way that you are. Or for example, if you have problems on your personal life, your emotional life, sometimes you take it out on the people that you love. And so it goes on into that where balance really is the key to everything. Now, Aaron, this is my question for you then.
Uh-huh.
How do you know if you're depending too much on your family and friends? Now that we've kind of acknowledged what Ian said, where it's okay to be emotionally dependent on the people that you love,
I,
just as long
I,
as you're not too dependent.
yes, but the thing here is I'm looking at it and it's really dependent on one solitary person, like your partner, a
Ah,
friend, or a family member.
isa
So isa lang,
lang.
isa lang.
Normal yun. Alam mo, feeling ko normal yun. Because like I've been into relationships like with my friends and my family, but I feel like the problem that you I would usually arise is the fact that being emotionally solely dependent on one person puts so much pressure in your relationship,
Yes.
and that usually causes it to crack.
Yes, because no matter what, if you're putting emotional pressure on someone, because like you're asking somebody to carry the emotional baggage that you have with you, uh, you also have to remember that that person is also carrying emotional baggage. So if you're making them hold so much, it will put a lot of pressure on them, and it goes back to the bar stool as well. Because I mean, if you put it all on one leg, that leg is not going to be able to balance everything. You have to be able to spread out. Now, if you know personally, like I had to do this myself because I knew I was leaning a little bit too much on my emotional and my mental health on my brother. And my brother has his own problems. My brother has his family to take care of. And I knew I had to step up and say, you know what, I have to really take control of this. And whatever I could, I took the emotion on my side. Whatever I couldn't, and I didn't want to give to my brother, I sent it up to God. And I said, okay, if that's the way, if it's too much for me, then God will take care of it. Now that's where the other side of it goes. You know how there's some people na, bahala na si Lord. That's not the way that it should be done either. You know, it needs to be an equal 33.3% level of a distribution of pressure on everything that you have around you.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I think also what Aaron is trying to touch on kanina, one of the things that he was saying was it's okay to be emotionally dependent on one person
Yeah.
if you're willing to be that same person for that person.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
okay, if you're gonna be if for example, between Aaron and myself, right? If Aaron is gonna be emotionally dependent on me, I should also be, or Aaron should also be ready that I'm emotionally dependent on him. And you have to find that balance wherein you're not taking too much of the person, right? That's one thing. Now, how do you set the boundaries? Of course there has to be boundaries. um and I feel like it's different with every kind of relationship, you
Definitely.
know. With Aaron and myself, especially, you know, one of the things that we were talking about Wanchana yesterday, one of the things that I really appreciated with Aaron was when I started dating Wancho, I he wasn't so close to me anymore like we used to before, because you were kind of respecting the fact
Yes.
that we can no longer be so emotionally dependent on each other when I have like a boyfriend and now a husband.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that Aaron set that boundary. And I feel like with any relationship, you also have to set that boundary. If for example you have a girl best friend, right, and you're a male, you have to know where the boundary lies. Or if for example this is your mom and your mom is and you're already working, you're an adult already, you also have to set the boundaries. Like what are the boundaries for you? And sometimes the best way to arrive at that is to actually sit down and just have a simple conversation with the person that you're in this relationship with. Like, is it okay that I call you after I have a bad day? Is it okay that you are my sponge whenever I'm not feeling well? Is it okay? Set those boundaries. Ask yourself and then ask the other person who is involved in this relationship.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was having kind of the same conversation with somebody yesterday about my friendship with you. Um, we were talking about what I did for your birthday, and my friend was asking me, why didn't you plan the birthday for her in cooperation with Wancho? Like, why didn't you and him collaborate for it? And I was like, that's not my job anymore. I mean, if she was, when she got married, I knew that my boundary changed, my relationship changed because the dynamic has changed. I am no longer best friends with just Joyce Spring. I am best friends with Joyce Spring Trevino and Juancho Trevino. That is the way that it is. That's the dynamic, and that's the way that we all have to look at it. Now,
Yeah.
if things change, like what Desi in the group said, based on personal experience, it's a big no. The moment they leave, hindi ka na makatayo, mahirap makatayo sa sariling paa. So, if you don't set the boundaries and if you don't know the type of, dependency you have on people, that's where it gets very difficult. Not being dependent on somebody, stopping yourself from being dependent on somebody does not change it. It's knowing your dependency on somebody that will change it.
That sounds good, parts. Okay, why don't we read some of the responses in the SOS group? So we've got a Facebook group, and some of our members here sometimes post their questions. And amazingly, the members of the group actually have incredible insights that
Great job.
they share in the comment section. And now we'll do that for Ian's question. Go, parts.
Bonita says, I think it is still better to be responsible for your own emotions. It's okay to have someone you can share your emotions with, but at the end of the day, it's still you who needs to deal with it. I absolutely agree, Bonita. Graz says, uso pala dito yung asking for a friend. No insult, no insult intended. Moving on to Gabrielle. As experience, no. Especially your loved ones are your support system, but you are on your own for you to grow and know your limitations. But of course, we have different cases pa rin. Mara says, hi, in my opinion, it's okay to be emotionally dependent. Of course, it has its limits too. It's like you're a baby. You're trying to learn how to walk. You'll be needing guidance and encouragement along the way. But as soon as you learn to walk already, you should decide your own path independently. And I think it's growing. Man, Mara is on, dude. Mara bringing the fire on that.
Yeah.
Faye says it's okay to get advice from them, but don't be too dependent because at the end of the day, you will deal with your own problems. These people are just your inspiration or motivation. I have a friend I am emotionally dependent on. I can talk to him every time and anywhere. That is Jesus. He is a friend who will not abandon you no matter what, and it is okay to be emotionally dependent on him. Coming from Joanne, for me, it's okay to listen to what your loved ones have to say, but it is important to make a stand at the end of the day. It is still your own opinion and your own decision, and that will matter the most. It's your life and no one else's anyway. Lastly, from Carly, for me, no. But look for an accountability or a vent buddy who listens and can help you process your emotions.
Great insights, you guys. I
Fantastic.
think if we were to put it in a nutshell, the one thing that you have to realize when you are an adult already, when you're growing up and you're taking responsibility for yourself and for your life, one of the things that you have to forego is complete dependence on other people for anything. It's basically the reverse of
Anything.
being right of for anything. It's the reverse of being a baby. You have to do everything on your own. And we're not saying that a man is an island. Of course, no man is made to be an island. You do need your support system and people to encourage you, motivate you, and kind of help you and guide you. Yes, that's true. But majority of the things that you'll be doing in your life, you have to do on your own. And so even with emotional dependency, it's okay to have that person that you depend on, that you count on, even that you deal with life with, but you can never be too dependent on that person. As one of our SOS members said, when that person goes, if you completely depend on that person, you'd be devastated. You'd be left with nothing. That old saying in Tumblr says, "Don't make anyone your everything because when they leave, you have nothing."
Ooh, a Tumblr citation.
Pero totoo yun I learned from that because I read that when I was in my teens. I was on Tumblr. I realized that that's so true. I can't depend fully on someone for my love and for my emotions, because once they leave, I'm left with nothing. And so that's why I have close friends. That's why I have family. That's why I have God. So I don't put pressure on that one person. And so I don't also put all my value on that one person.
Yeah. Think of it as a map. I mean, you can ask people for directions, but you still got to be the one
Wow.
to walk it. So that's just the way it is.
Wow.
Kala mo, ikaw lang yung may mga Tumblr quotes? Meron din ako, ano?
From bar stools to map, ha? Ganda parts. Ang ganda ng transition mo. Okay. Okay, so Ian, I hope that
Yeah.
answers your question. Word of advice parts, I guess, I feel like Aaron Atayde was one of the first, if not the one of the very few people who taught me in my life to be emotionally strong. And being emotionally strong doesn't mean foregoing feeling things. It actually means dealing with it. So,
Yes.
any advice that you could give to Ian to healthily deal with emotions and emotional dependence?
Well, Ian, tell your friend who was obviously asking for this. Not at all.
Not Ian.
Not
Yeah.
Ian. My advice is to recognize what those emotions are, because if you don't understand what the problem is, you'll never look for a solution. And if you're dependent on asking somebody else to help you out with everything that is happening in your life, you're not going to be able to learn how to fix things in your own life. And like everyone has been saying, whether it's in the comment section or here on the show, if that person leaves, then you don't have anyone that can solve all of these problems for you. Know what your problems are so that your questions to even the people that you are dependent on become even easier. So, for instance, if you're dependent on them and you're like, I don't know what to do in this situation, and they say, what's this situation? And you say, hindi ko alam eh. That's the problem. Try and learn what is causing you to have these emotional problems, and then try and figure them out on yourself. What you can do on your own, do it, and then ask for help, and then ask for help from God. That is the best way to go about it. That's how I've been doing it. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm 100% in my ways. Obviously, I still have my problems here and there, but I do know when I have my problems, and I do know the different people that I can go to for those different problems. I don't go to Joyce for problems that I have that I would go to my best friend Ange. Like, they are very different people for very different dependencies, and that is also something that you might need to look into as well. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said. I think also for Ian's friend, a reminder would have to be part of adulting really is kind of going out of your comfort zone. And maybe this friend of yours has been in a a comfort zone of being with someone, a friend, family member, or a romantic relationship where they feel comfortable because they have someone who kind of fights their battles for them. And that's normal because I feel like it's easy to be dependent on other people, especially if these people are strong and they're willing to do it for you. Sometimes they don't even need boundaries, right? They're willing to give you their all, and that's amazing when you have friendships and relationships like that. But it actually robs you of the the chance to grow into the person that you could be, to be that strong person for yourself. One of the reasons why I started traveling on my own at 21, and not with a boyfriend or anything like that, or not even with my bracada or my friends, was because I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone so that I could say to myself, see, you can be strong on your own. You can do things, achieve things on your own. It's okay to be dependent. It's okay to count on others. It's okay to have, I guess, comfort blankets in your life and amazing people who are willing to be that for you, your support system. But what's not okay is not allowing yourself to grow because you're just so dependent on them.
My question is, what if it's the other way around? What if you feel that
Oh.
somebody is too emotionally dependent on you? What are you supposed to do?
I think it's like you're gonna have to look at yourself as a walker, right? Like you have to kind of start allowing them to do the hard work for themselves instead of constantly being there. I remember when Wancho and I started, when we got married, actually, one of the things that we were going through was we would constantly fight, and he was going through a lot of things, a lot of difficult things, right? And I told him, kasi his natural inclination was to go to me. I'm his wife. So
Yeah.
his natural inclination is to go to me and go like, please fix this. My heart is breaking. Please fix this. And one of the hardest things that I had to do in the marriage was to kind of go like, love, I can't fix that for you. That's something that you have to fix on your own and with God. Because if I fix it for you, although I know how to, then you'll always come back to me to fix it for you instead of figuring out for yourself. Or for example, we would talk about an issue, right? And instead of talking about the tiny issue, which was kind of like just the telltale sign of the root issue, I told him, I don't think your problem with me is this. I think your problem is that you were going through this and that and this and that in your past, and now it's showing up in a relationship. So I actually asked him to go back to the root causes of the problem, right? And if someone is emotionally dependent on you, that's the hard thing that you have to do. One, you have to make them realize what the actual root problem is of their emotional dependence on you. And two, you have to allow them to figure it out on their own. And the amazing thing is, when I didn't fix things for Wancho, what he did was he went to God, he prayed more, he spent more time with God, which showed na yung pala yung kailangan niya. He didn't need emotional support from me. He needed to strengthen that part of the stool, his relationship with God. And then another part of the stool, instead of going to me, he messaged his mentors. So like his church leaders, his D group leader, his mentor, he would ask advice from other married husbands. So parang if I didn't do that, if I didn't go and tell him, no, you have to fix that on your own. I can't be here for you. I can't be the one to fix that for you. He would have never grown in the way that he did. I would have never seen his capacity for growth. And sometimes it's that. Sometimes we're afraid of letting people do things because we don't want them to be hurt. But sometimes being hurt is the only way to grow. And it's all worth it.
I absolutely agree. There's more than one way to help somebody in a situation. Now, if the situation says that you need to help them by fixing the problem, then that's one way to do it. The other way is to teach them how to
Yes.
fix the problem. And
Mhm.
that is how I always looked at it. I mean, I always wanted to be able to help my friends whenever they came to me with, asking for advice, to let them know that they can do this on their own. I had one friend come up to me and ask me to break up him and his girlfriend like, bro, can you do it? I can't do it, man. I can't do it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna be able to do that, dude. So
just out of curiosity, what was his idea of like
bro,
breaking the two of them?
You're really good at talking. Can you like break me up with my girlfriend? And I was
Like being a therapist?
No. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Hopefully this helped you guys out. Not only assess, who you are dependent on, how much you are dependent on them, but as well as who's dependent on you and how you should react and try and help the people that are dependent on you emotionally as well. Because it's not just about walking them, along the way. It's also showing them the way.
That's right. I guess that pretty much sums up our episode for today. Thank you very much, you guys, for listening to SOS. Again, we'd like to invite you to join our Facebook group. That's Shot at Sanity SOS Podcast.
Yes, and please make sure you hit us up online at Joyce Pring and at Aaron Atayde on your social media sites, as well as using the hashtag Adulting with Joyce Spring, hashtag Shot of Sanity. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye-bye!
Alam!
And that's it for this episode. If you'd like to continue the conversation, go to www.joycepring.com. And if you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/adultingwithjoycepring. I'll talk to you guys soon. Paalam!